Just take a look at these plant photographs I've got here for you. Now, anyone can look at this and know that these plants are nutrient deficient. Unfortunately, I see this a lot. People send me photographs and they say, what is wrong with my plants? Now, it's a nutrient problem and they're just not doing the right thing by their system. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit about that today. So many people, unfortunately, on the internet think that there's going to be a specific nutrient they need to add in order to make their plants okay. Now, it's true. When we examine some plants, we can see that there are particular nutrients that might be a dominant nutrient that is actually short. But I've got to tell you, it's never just one particular nutrient. Nature doesn't work that way. Our approach to aquaponics is a holistic one. We believe very strongly that aquaponics is an ecosystem, and we want our plants to be healthy as naturally as we possibly can. Now, you might think, how can we do that in an aquaponics system? Because, we're keeping the fish in tanks and we're growing our veggies in beds. Nothing natural about that. Well, what we're doing is we're taking the best of nature, the best of aquaponics, the best of aquaculture, the best of hydroponics. We're putting them together and we're maximising the benefit. So we have to be very intelligent about the way we get nutrient to our plants. Okay, we want to be able to use as much as possible really pure organic methods of adding nutrients to our system. And that's not able to be done really by adding a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of something else. Now, what we want to do is use simple but very effective methods like making compost tea, for example, and worm tea. And by doing both of these processes and adding these to our system, we get a complete nutrient balance into our system. And look, I can tell you, once you know how to do this, it is actually very easy to do. But unfortunately, we've spent probably the last 50 or 60 years in the Western world anyway, of being taught that we can add a chemical for almost anything. You've got this problem, you've got a sore knee, take a pill. You've got a sore leg, take another pill. And same in our garden. Your plants look a bit, add this nutrient, add that nutrient, and so on it goes. And look, pardon me for being cynical, but I honestly believe that's just a marketing ploy that big companies use to sell you some of their particular goop, whatever it might be. But we believe very strongly in using compost tea and worm tea. And you can make them at home, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's actually easier than you think. What I'm doing is collecting some compost from our compost pile. Now, we make all our own compost. We've got several compost bins on the go all the time. We use compost from all around the property. When we have a feed of fish, we put all the guts and the head and everything into the compost pile. We use all sorts of stuff. But anyway, we're going to show you how to make compost tea in your Indy 23 system. The first stage is to get some of this good-looking compost here. Look at it. Good stuff. So you could almost put it on your sandwiches. It's that good. You see there's a lot of material there that's still in the process of breaking down. There's a lot of material that's already broken down. You can see there's a bit of vermiculite amongst it from when we've put our old seed pots in there and that kind of thing. It all goes back into the compost pile, and we're going to now make some compost tea. So let's go over to the Indian greenhouse now and I'll show you what we do. Now, this is how you make compost tea the aquaponics way. Now, look, if you look on the internet, you'll see all sorts of things about compost tea and how difficult it is to make and how you've got to have this size container by this size container and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. Look, they're just trying to sell you their container. I can tell you we make fantastic compost tea. Now, you saw me just get our wonderful compost straight out of our compost area, and we've put it into this net bag, and see, it just looks like a cup of tea, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do now is tie a Boy Scout knot around it. I'll just loop it through this like this. So we've got it secured, and then there's a piece of high-tech string. Now, I'm sorry, I've got a weird sense of humour, but I should tell you now that this is a special piece of string. If it's not this special string, then it won't work, but that's a load of rubbish. And then we just tie it here and immerse it into our mineralisation tank, and in a very high-tech way, we just tie it off here with a few Boy Scout loops. And really, that's it. Look what we're doing. We're making compost tea, just like you would make a cup of tea. And you can see the bag is down here. It's going to get fully wet. All that good stuff will drain out of it into our system. And It's being aerated the whole time, and you'll notice I'm hanging it on the side nearest where most of the bubbles are. That's it. That's as simple as that. We can put compost tea just like that into our aquaponics system. So in 48 hours, when this is brewed up long enough, this lovely fish poo and everything in there, we'll also now have all the goodness out of our wonderful compost will be in there as well. All those microbes and stuff that were in our compost pile. Unfortunately, there's probably a few worms in amongst that when I scooped it up. And all that goodness will be extracted out and put into the water, which will then go into our aquaponics system and produce for us the most beautiful, nutrient-dense vegetable for our family and for our customers if you're a commercial operator. You might wonder, how can we be sure that our compost has all the micro elements and nutrients and bacterium and all the stuff in it that's going to make our plants grow really, really well? Well, it depends on how well you make the compost, obviously. For example, we add to all our compost, as we're building up the layers, we add kelp powder. We've obtained from Tasmania right down the south of Australia, those abundantly pure Western Shore oceans that wash up this giant kelp. And we all know that the ocean, particularly if it's a pure ocean like southern Tasmania, has got all the elements out of the ocean, all the micro minerals and nutrients and all that kind of thing. So we use kelp powder and we sprinkle that liberally through our compost pile. And as we're turning our compost pile, obviously that all becomes part of it. But look, in our aquaponics design course, we're going to go into some really fine detail about how to do this, because some of you might need to have an exact formula to follow. We'll give you one, an exact formula to follow, so that you can be sure that you're making really, really good compost tea out of the final product. And look, if you're a real fusspot and you want to be absolutely sure of it, then what you do is make some compost tea, send some of the compost tea off to a laboratory for analysis, and you'll be just surprised at how good it really is. But you don't need to do that, because look at my plants I've got growing here. Look how healthy they are. And the plants will tell you. You can't have plants that look this good that are nutrient deficient. Honestly, you can't. Because if they're nutrient deficient, they'll look a bit like this. Have a look at some of these plants that we found when we were doing a bit of filming around the place that are seriously nutrient deficient. And you haven't got to be too smart to work that out, that this is what's wrong with these plants. Worm tea is the other thing we use. Now, worm tea is really easy to make. Look at these shots we've got here for you to look at. Now, to keep your worm farm going, what you do is put all your veggie scraps out of your house in it. Or if you're really, really keen on it, you could go down to your local fruit and veg and collect all their old fruit and veg and put it into your worm tea. And your worms will consume it, break it down, and out of the bottom of it, you will collect the leachate, or the liquid that's coming out of the bottom of your worm farm. And that leachate is abundantly rich in all the nutrients and all the materials. Look, you don't have to be an Einstein to realise that what worms do when they break down material, they release nutrients that would have otherwise been trapped up and unavailable in the material you've used. They release it and it comes out in their leachate, It comes out in the leachate that comes out of the bottom of the worm farm that you collect. We can just add it straight into the water of our aquaponic system and let it circulate round and round and round, and it will do its job. Another thing we can do is actually use it as a foliar spray. In other words, spray the leaves with it of the plants. And that will add nutrient directly to those plants. And some say, although I've got to tell you I don't have any direct evidence of it, but some say it actually helps repel insects. So, why not do that? Make some wonderful compost tea and spray it on your plants as a foliar spray. A wonderful thing to do.